Welcome back. Daniel Bacelic is head of ISV's public sector, Amazon Web Services, covering Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. And he's going to address us on developing a culture of innovation in your university. Daniel, welcome.
So, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone in the room, and thanks for everyone online. So let me just get the slides sorted. Yeah, sure. So just to begin with, so thanks for the introductions first. So in my role, I'm taking care about independent system vendors across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. That's my new role, but I'm also very much focused on education. So in my last role, I was dealing with partners in education, and I was also developing business with education across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, working with universities to help them to utilize new technologies to drive better education and better learning outcomes. In that role, I was also working in education for last 10-ish years in number of different companies and number of different roles. And I need to be closer to the microphone, I believe. So the point, what we want to do today is we want to actually give you and share the experiences of how AWS and Amazon innovates and how we can actually utilize those mechanisms and that way of innovation to support innovation on your university. So, but to start with, I would like to share the mission of Amazon, which is basically to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. So, but if you most probably know, Amazon started as an online bookstore. But when you look at this mission statement doesn't speak about anything in terms of selling books. It doesn't speak about the internet. It doesn't speak about anything what we started to do. The purpose of this mission and why this mission is designed in a way like it is that we really start and really focus on the customer and making the customer satisfied and making the customer delighted with our products and services. And then whatever we build around the customer, it's a kind of an open thing, an open opportunity. So we believe that innovation begins with customer needs and whatever customer wants to have. And then we start with the customer and we are working backwards to get the right solutions using whatever resources that we need or we think we might need. And so our founder, Jeff Bezos, he always writes for the yearly reports, which we submit to the stock market. There is always a letter which precedes that report, and in that shareholder letter, Jeff Bezos said that there are many advantages to be customer-centric approach, but there is just one big one: is the customers are always beautifully and wonderfully dissatisfied, even when they report being happy and the business is great, and even when they don't know it, customers want something better, and your desire to delight customers will drive you to invent on their behalf. And then, of course, when we translate this kind of sentence, we can put it in any kind of environment. And here we are talking about putting this in an environment of education. And in our education space, our customer is always a student. But now, how do we organize ourselves for innovation, and what are the components that we believe that makes the innovation going, and how we innovate? So one thing is, so we have four pillars how we organize for innovation. One is culture, and then we talk about how do we really feel and how do we really perceive the innovation, and that we have a support belief system to force that innovation. And then we have mechanisms, which are kind of encoded behaviors. I'll talk about that obviously later. And then the architecture, and what kind of technologies we can use. And then finally, how we do organize to be successful in innovation. So let's start with culture. So in Amazon, we have 16 leadership principles. And each of those principles is actually guiding our behavior and how we behave and how we do things around Amazon. So for example, even when we are hiring people, in the interview process, everybody needs to actually demonstrate the behaviors which are aligned with Amazon leadership principles. But you can see, so 14 of them, but if I kind of start, the most important thing is that you need to align and you need to work in a harmony with those leadership principles, depending on the situation and depending on how they feel. But for example, if you look at that, we have a leadership principles which says insist on higher standards. So meaning we always need to insist on higher standards for our customers. But for example, we have also frugality on the other side. So frugality means that we always are looking to find the most cost-effective method of delivering a result. And then if you think about it, so how you can be frugal and in the same time insist of higher standards. But the answer is that you need to put whatever you are doing, you need to put on a kind of a scale and figure out what is actually the best situation for the customer and how you balance it out between the principles which might be in kind of a conflict. So why is this important? Is that you bring each and every decision that teams are making and put it in a kind of put it in an environment between all of those principles, and you can make a kind of a right decision. So this is a cover of a Business Week which went out when the AWS was launched. This is actually to show what you need to have as well when you are thinking about innovation and how much courage it needs to take. So this cover of the Business Week also circulated a few days ago on Twitter, for example, which was circulated again by Jeff. But this is a super important thing because in 2006, when Amazon was launched, people started to comment in terms of like why they are launching this kind of a business, why they don't focus on retail and fix their profitability on the retail side instead of launching a new digital platform, which is completely something different. So the commentary on that was that launching AWS is a very risky bet and that maybe company will fail. The point is that when you are looking to innovate and when you have a great idea, you also need to be willing to be misunderstood for a very, very long time. And you need to have that courage to push on your ideas until they come to fruition. Because, for example, if Jeff would be like listening to the comments which were published in that particular article of a Business Week, somebody will say, oh, hey, this might not be really a good idea. Why don't I close this idea and focus on something else? So instead, he was persistent, believing in that particular idea. And today, we have millions of active customers on the platform every month. The AWS has now more than 200 fully featured services. But what is also most important from our perspective is that AWS really delivered on the scales, on the economy of scale that it promised to deliver. So we reduced the prices for our customers 111 times since the inception of AWS. This is the only service that I'm personally aware of which actually reduces the prices across the price list for their customers, regardless whether the customers want that or not. You're simply using, when we reach the economies of scale, which allow us to reduce the price further, we simply reduce the price further. And then everybody who is on the platform and everybody who is using those services are benefiting from that economies of scale. And this is the important promise of cloud technology in the beginning, because we can, when we are building our infrastructure and when we are building our cloud services, we are building those cloud services to be global and to be at scale, and we can achieve economies of scale much better than anybody else. So you can't get a better or more competitive service on a smaller scale. But let me share one piece which is super useful or practical, and we can also start using that in our daily lives. It's called, so one of our leadership principles is bias for action, which says speed matters in business. Many decisions and actions are reversible and do not need extensive study. We value calculated risk taking. So what does this mean for us in a business? We always ask, so whether is this a one-door or two-way door decision? Meaning that if it's a one-way door decision, this would mean that you cannot reverse the decision. It means that it's a decision where it takes a lot of capital investment, or it's a disruptive decision which simply cannot be reversed. What it means if it's a two-way door decision, it means that whatever you decide and act upon, that you can actually, if you see it is not working for you, you can reverse it back and simply go to back it like it was. And why is this important? Because, for example, in everyday life, when you are working in your company or you work in your university, working with students or anybody else, and somebody comes with idea and says, "Oh, I would like to try something new." And the only question which we get as employees and managers in Amazon is like, is this two-way door decision or is it one-way door decision? And then if you say, yeah, it's a two-way door decision, so I will try. If it works, great. If not, we will simply reverse it back with minimum damages. So this means that you are actually always allowed and encouraged to do that kind of decisions and that kind of attempts if you always can reverse the situation. So it's one of the key components of culture and key component of innovation, because we really cannot innovate if we are not trying things. And then if you are not encouraged to try new things, then new things will not happen. And this thinking of whether is it a two-way door or one-way door decision, actually it's a kind of a mechanism and helps us to classify the things that we can really try fast and cheap and things which we don't try. But then this leads us into mechanisms. And when we talk about mechanisms, the mechanism for us is something that works on its own. It's not controlled by people. It simply it's a set of rules and set of procedures which you need to follow and to achieve some objective. And why we use mechanisms is that you need to have something which is very, very solid and very, very fair to everyone, and that you make always the decisions in the same way or in the same level. Because if you rely on people intentions or people goodwill to do something, that can relatively easily fail, because people can change their mind and stuff like that. But in this case, mechanisms never fail, because you always need to follow through the same set of procedures. And this is one of our most important mechanisms, especially for education, is we call it working backwards mechanism, because we have certain elements that we need to create. We put the customer in the middle. Then what we do is, by the set of rules, we write a press release. So you have an idea what the customer would like. And then you don't go into producing that particular idea. What you do is you, for example, write a press release. You put yourself in a situation. Where you believe. So you put an imaginative press release like the product is already launched, and you ask yourself, so what would customers say about this product? What would we say about this product? How we would announce this product? How we would portray the purpose of this product and how this product or a service should be used. Then, when we write a press release, and we are happy with the press release, we write an FAQ, which stands for frequently asked questions. Sometimes we do just a customer FAQ, which would be like, you come up with a list of imaginative questions which customers might want to have. So one of the easiest questions would be, oh, what kind of support you are providing if the services break? Or how much the service is going to cost? Or can I pay for the service by funding or by somebody else? Or so tons of different questions. You come up with all the questions that customers might have, and then you start answering those questions. And by working on those two mechanisms, so writing the press release and writing the FAQs, it actually really funnels the way of thinking. It makes you and the whole team which you are working with on a new product or a new service, it makes you think of what and how you are going to do stuff. And it brings a lot of ideas, it solves a lot of problems even before you start working on the product. The third component of that might be the visuals. So sometimes we also write or draw visuals to support the whole story, but visuals are kind of an optional component depending on what kind of service you are making or what kind of product you are making. But visuals can sometimes support it, or maybe they would not be needed. But then for mechanisms itself, it's super important that we put the customer in the middle. So one thing, for example, when doing this kind of a mechanism, the number one issue to solve is who is your customer. And it might be trivial. We have always 5 questions that we ask about who is your customer, what is the major customer benefit, is the major customer benefit clear? And when you think about it, it might be simple, but when you ask and start going through that PR FAQ, and when you are going through that process of building the press release, maybe you will get some revelations on what is the real need for the customer and how do you actually fulfill that need, and what are the pieces and components which you already might have. So I will give you an example at this point in time. Because I worked with one of the universities in Israel, and we had a large workshop with number of IT folks, number of line of business folks, and people are coming up with all sorts of problems and wanted to solve some of the problems. And then one of the challenges were the fact that they had like issues in scheduling, let's say, capacities. And then we boiled down which particular capacities were the problem for the students. And they were like thinking about building something really large and expensive, making different integrations with some of the existing tools. But the line of questioning actually boiled down the problem of students wants to learn in libraries. And then when you look at the campus, which might be really big, and then library is in one place, your dormitory is completely another place, and your lecture room is in completely third place. And if you have like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, for example, to go into the library and do some work, you will then, for example, start walking. You need 10 minutes to come to the library. You need like 5-7 minutes to come and find your desk. You need a few more minutes to find your book. And actually, the problem happens because then you do all that work, you invest that time just to realize that there is no place in a library. So why would you do that? So, and then you will lose your place in the library. You need another 30 minutes to walk somewhere else to find your place. And basically, you burnt your 1.5 hours which you have for your studies and for your preparation. So what was the kind of thinking about it? It was, let's do a scheduling system so that the people can book the seats. But then, first of all, this would like be a kind of a simple solution, would require some kind of integration with calendar, etc., etc. But we still didn't answer that right question. So how do we really know that the seat is free? So maybe you book an hour, you went out after a half an hour because you finished earlier. Maybe you didn't show up for your booking at all. So why would you keep that reservation? And you know how it goes also with restaurants. We book a seat and then we need to swipe a credit card just to make sure that we come. And then we still don't come sometimes because some unpredictable thing happens. And then we started another discussion. So, okay, what pieces of technology do we have and what we can utilize again to make that kind of a fulfillment of need. So just to, in the interest of time, to cut that story a little bit shorter, the outcome was, yeah, we anyhow have a CCTV system which is covering the whole library. So the final solution was to use the video feed from a CCTV to identify, using the artificial intelligence, to identify which seats are free and which seats are not free. This gave the university a live, real-time feed of free seats. So they didn't need to depend on a regular, standard seat booking situation, but they could see on a feed. So they're using the video feed, they could identify number of empty seats. Those number of empty seats were projected into the calendar, and basically as a student in real time, you would just pull the mobile phone from your app, go into your app and see, oh, there are like 5 places, I just book one and just go there. This kind of, it's a really simple solution which required, let's say, a whole day of ideation with the whole team. It required a relatively small amount of build and design because there is already an existing system which provides you video. You utilize, for example, machine learning, which is provided from the cloud. So basically, you don't need to buy anything. You're just pay as you go. So they built that system in a week. And it solved a 100-year-old problem. And everybody is happy with it. So this is the way how we try to innovate and how we are helping our customers to innovate by using those kind of mechanisms empowered by the technology. And now, the one thing which is important about the technology and how we design technology is that we shifted everything to microservices. So what it means in terms of microservices, when each and every service does its own work and it has secure API. So what it means that if you want to use the service, you just access the service through the API. What is important is that API has a good documentation based on what your service provides and how you use the service. And then you don't need to build all your components on your own. So we have millions of those microservices. And we are providing most of those microservices to our customers. But for example, if you ever bought something on Amazon and you needed to press that orangey yellowish button depending on the resolution of your screen, and you needed to say, yes, buy. So one microservice is that button. So each and every team in Amazon or wherever we are working. So if you want to do a basket kind of solution and you need a checkout button, you don't need to build your own checkout button. Everybody uses that already built checkout button. There are like few architects behind that button. They are maintaining and improving the service. They are responsible for the service is functioning. In full stack. They are responsible for the quality of the service, and everybody else in the ecosystem is just using the service through the API. And they are like, this is just it's just one example, but all of the services operate in a different way. And why this is important is because it gives you the possibility to utilize technology in many, many different ways. So it's like a menu of things, and you are just picking the bits and pieces. And here is also one element, is whether is it a difference in full service or self-service. And we always know that like all the advertising with full service, and then you pay for that full service, and then you are always some kind of not really happy because it's not as you designed it. But when you have a self-service thing, and we are great believers in self-service, which is actually enabled by this microservices technology, is that you have the menu, you have all the rules, how you use the service, then you use the service on your own, and you make the best out of it. If you don't like it, you kick it out, you start using some other service. But the point is that you can provision everything on your own, when you need it, how you need it, and in a matter of moments. For example, if you are a software developer in a traditional world, you need a new server, you need to go to the IT staff. They will tell you, oh, though we don't have any more availability, we need to buy new stuff. Then you wait for like a month and a half that they buy a new stuff. Then you wait for another month So they stack it and rack it and put it at power and on the network, and then they will patch it for security, test for security, and then something will not work. So in between, usually in real world, between whatever you want to do, if you need an infrastructure, it takes like 3 months to get it. And that would be actually a great result, because 3 months will be, if you have money, if you have everything in place, if you know what you need to buy and then you buy it, it also takes 3 months. With self-service and with cloud, it takes like 15 seconds. Oh, I need a server. Which one? Click, 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 you deploy it and it runs. And then in the same way, you kill it also if you don't need it, or if you need something else. If you don't like it, you just kill that service and open another service. This actually, the way of thinking, like through self-service provision in the cloud plus microservices, significantly accelerates the innovation and significantly accelerates the production of software. And then finally, last but not least, it's the organization. So you need to organize in a way which will align with, for example, usage of mechanisms, which will align with usage of microservices and stuff like that. So what you want to have small decentralized teams which hold the ultimate responsibility for what they do. They have always a single-threaded owner. So we use this analogy of two pizza teams. It is always a question which is the country and how big is the pizza and how people are hungry. But the point is that you should have very, very small agile teams assigned to a small pieces of work rather than having kind of an overarching responsibility. And this brings, first of all, this brings speed, and it brings also a lot of responsibility. And then it also helps with all the mechanisms that I was presenting, it also helps to get that ownership and responsibility. And there is also one super important element which fuels the innovation, is ability to accept failure. So failure should not be punished. So in this share owners letter in 2015, Jeff wrote that failure and innovation are inseparable twins. To invent, you have to experiment. And if you know in advance that it's not going to work, it's not an experiment. So this is very, very important sentence also for me personally, because it also helped me to kind of change my way of thinking. Is that the fact is that you need really to enable in culture and in organization that element which allows you to fail. And when you fail, that you don't get punished for failure, but you learn from your failure and you utilize that learning in your next experiment. And as you can imagine, we had a very nice share of failures in Amazon. So for example, auctions, these shops, those were like something that we wanted to produce to kind of work hand in hand to complement Amazon and also to do something for second-hand business. But for example, all of those fails, but we used all of those learnings to design Marketplace, and Marketplace is now a large part of Amazon business, where we have and actually allow third-party sellers to sell on the platform in a different ways which they like. But for example, the most important, or let's say the most interesting failure was Fire Phone. So that was a phone which we launched as a device. This resulted in writing off the inventory of 170 millions of produced phones because nobody wanted to buy them. But simply, it was something that we tried to do. Simply didn't work, but we utilized all of those knowledge, and none of the people who were in those Fire Phone teams were fired because of the phone was not working in the right way. We utilized all of that knowledge to produce all of our other products and all of our other devices, which are important component of the overall ecosystem. So, in a summary, we utilize all of those 4 components to foster innovation, and we are utilizing this session actually to help our customers to demonstrate how Amazon innovates, what are successful components of us and of AWS doing this work for all of our customers and primarily universities. We are also facilitating sessions, which would be kind of digital innovation workshops, where we help you actually to utilize and choose some of the elements which you can also use in your innovation processes. So I think that we are kind of on time. Thanks for the attention. And do we have questions?
I don't see any in the room, but can I just make a comment?
Yes, please.
Because I think there are some themes running this conference.
David, can you go to the microphone? We can't hear your comment.
I think there are some themes running through this conference, and one of them is private sector thinking and university thinking. And I think what you've shown is how university can learn from the way that Amazon has approached it. And in the opening session, we were talking about universities and society, and society needing to trust university. Maybe one way to build that is to work more closely using private sector methodology, and then to learn together and to trust each other. So thank you very much indeed. And perhaps we can, sorry, we have a question. Would you like to come up to this microphone?
David, we can't hear you online. So you need to be directly in front of that mic. I'm sorry.
In terms of
Please don't
innovation,
stand. Please stop. Please don't stand on the side of it. It needs to be directly in front of the microphone because it's not omnidirectional and we can't hear you. Thank you so much.
thank you. We are all together, thinking together. In terms of innovation, for us, universities have to really acknowledge that it is much more innovative and accessible. And looking at sustainability and the aims we have together with people in the world, how can we work together then to facilitate transmission of knowledge that can foster transformation in society that drive us towards sustainability? At the same time, reconsider the whole aspect of machines and materials and relationships with each other in the context of Amazon being able to innovate in that way too. So we're not just focused on consumers, exporters, but also our exchange as people in the world, looking at how we can exchange knowledge and transform society, because we can see what is a role of that.
Yeah, thanks for the question. That was a huge one. But I would just like to echo is that when we look at the way how we innovate, it's actually the area which it's a kind of an underlying mechanism that we can utilize also to satisfy any kind of the objective. So, for example, in our innovation workshops, we start by setting different objectives, and then we work together, helping you actually to utilize those elements and getting the outcomes, whatever the outcomes you might want. So we are more.
I hate to interrupt you. Can you, like, you were doing so good. We need to do a mic check because people are asking to hear what you're saying. So can you like step back one step from the mic? Talk now into the mic though, please. Sorry.
Okay, so where do I repeat?
It's not, we can't hear you. So I'm not sure if somebody in the room can, when you were speaking before, we heard you really well. So I'm not sure what's happening. Sorry to interrupt. If continue answering, and I know they'll do the best they can.
Okay. So I just wanted to re-emphasize that taking into consideration knowledge sharing, knowledge distribution, influence, and how, for example, the university can better transfer that kind of knowledge and all taken into account from a kind of sustainability point of view. All those components will be taken within the process of that particular
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Perhaps we could press on then.
Thank you.
Now,